where you have a series of steps that you perform or repetitions or decisions to make. Uh, Databases are query driven, so you don't write code in quite the same way. In fact, the code is really more in the form of a statement or a question, where you're either telling it to do something or you're asking it to do something. And what sometimes is seemingly a very simple statement can actually invoke a lot of complicated uh, or powerful results depending on how you look at it. One, really basic form of a query statement is what you're seeing right here. So select, from, and where. So if you remember that, that's like the core of a query. So it says select. What are we selecting? The first name, the middle initial, and last name. From where? From the student table. Any criteria? Where the department ID equals CS. Okay, so it's kind of a combination. And that, of course, can be expanded to lots of different things. Now, as part of those queries, you can also include comparison operators like we see here. And you'll see what basically is very common to most programming languages. The one thing I do want you to be aware of here is that it is flexible in terms of how you express not or not equal to. And those of you that started their programming with VB might opt to stay with this, but I'm going to tell you from, VB is kind of like the odd man out really when it comes to saying not equal to, and this is really the far more common format for it. But whichever one you want to use in SQL is fine. Okay, so these are comparisons. So we can actually run queries where we compare, where we might say if salary is greater than last year's salary or something like that. We also have the Boolean operators. We can do combination statements, and you guys should know what those are by now. Otherwise, you really shouldn't be in this class. And you can use those combinations in this fashion. So we can select the student name from the student table where they're in the CS department and their zip code is 31411. Notice that you can also use the wildcard. You guys should also know that one, or at least identify it just from common sense. Moving on here, they have some additional operators that, I'm not really sure how to quantify them because they're not comparison necessarily, and they're not, the Boolean ones where we can do and or not, but they're kind of their own unique category, which is one of the things that makes the SQL language a little bit more flexible and powerful. Now, here you can see the first example that the word like. So if you are looking for something where something is like something else, that doesn't mean it's exact, that means it's similar, right? And then the thing that is interesting about using like is that you can also use a percent symbol and an underline. All right, so the percent is basically the wild card. So it matches 0 or more characters. And then the underscore matches any single character. So if I was to say last name like underscore mi percent, that means it might have some single character here and then any combination of characters there. And hopefully that's kind of a vague little example. The other one is between, and notice the statement here between V1 and V2. Or you can also do the converse and say V not between V1 and V2. And notice how it is structured. So to choose a value between one thing and the other. And then they show to you that the between command is kind of really like doing a compound comparison. So if it's kind of like if V is greater than or equal to V1 and V is less than or equal to V2, And there's no real elegant way in programming to say something like that concisely. We say it verbally, and SQL tries to match that verbal setup. So here's an actual example of some SQL statement. So you might select Social Security number from the enrollment table where the grade is between C and A. If you were to do it in programming speak, you would say where grade greater than or equal to C, or excuse me, and grade is less than or equal to A. And hopefully that makes some sort of sense, because those really wouldn't work with comparison operators necessarily. All right, the other thing that you can do is you can set up a column alias, and sometimes you do this just so that the output that you generate will be named in a fashion that's useful to you as opposed to the name that's in the database table itself, because sometimes the database column names can be a little bit cryptic, especially if they're automatically generated. And to do that, all you need to do is use column name and then optionally the word as alias. And the better practice in my experience is to use the as word to remember it's an alias, but you actually don't need to do that. And they demonstrate here how that works. And notice that, you know, all they're really doing in this alias is they're just taking last name, which is in camel case, and stuck together, and then changing it to plain text so it's easier to read. Nothing more to it than that. Now, the really neat thing about SQL is that you can also throw in math operators kind of like almost all over the place, not really quite all over the place. Here you can see that they're going to select the title and then 50 times the number of credits as lecture minutes per week. So what they're doing is they're pulling up the number of credits, multiplying it by 50, and then displaying it in the output under this column name. So yes, you can actually do the math right as you're doing the question, which is what a query is. All right. So in this case, they're also showing us the distinct keyword. And the whole point of that is to basically make sure that you're not using the same data over again. So you could run a query and then pull back information that might look like this, where, you know, if you're looking, let's say you select the subject ID, but that subject ID might have multiple entries as a result. What you end up doing is you throw in the distinct keyword and it makes sure that it does not become replicated within your output, because that is not necessarily useful. Now, if you're going to be taking the information and putting it out to the screen and you need it to be sorted somehow, that you can do with SQL as well. And what they're doing here is they're showing you that you can select certain columns from the student table where a certain criteria is met, and then whatever results we bring back, we're going to order by last name descending and first name ascending. So in terms of ascending and descending, when we say descending on the last name, it is going to come back with the letter that's last in the alphabet first, right? Because if it was ascending, it would be alphabetical order. Now, it's important to note that ascending is the default. They don't really mention that here, but notice the whole point is the terminology. So just the first part of that keyword. Another very powerful database thing to do is joining tables. Now with joining a table, we need to find the column or the field in each table that matches up, and not only can do they match up, but they need to be of the same data type, or a data type that can convert from one to the other. So in this case, they're showing the student and enrollment table, and you can see how those are linked together via the Social Security number. Okay, so that is their join. Now, if you actually run um, a SQL statement to pull back the information. Notice where it says select distinct last name, first name, course ID from these two tables, from student and enrollment, and then they have criteria put in place. Now, that query, as he says here, looks at the rows from student in another spot in enrollment and picks up the pairs that satisfy the condition in the where clause. All right. So really what's coming back as a result here is information that it's coming back in a table, but this information doesn't come from the same table. So it actually comes from two tables and is basically in essence joined in the result. And that really is a super simplistic overview of what a join is, if you remember from your database class. All right, at this point, I am going to be terminating this video, and we will pick up in the next video shortly.